The Israeli-Palestinian conflict is one of the most enduring and complex struggles in modern history. A story of ancient roots, competing national identities, and decades of conflict that have shaped the Middle East and captured global attention. But beyond headlines and politics lies a deeply human saga of land, faith, displacement, and the quest for self-determination. Today we'll journey through the history of this conflict, exploring its origins, key events, and ongoing challenges together. This conflict goes back many centuries. The land known today as Israel and Palestine has been inhabited for thousands of years, with a rich tapestry of peoples and cultures. Archaeological and genetic evidence shows that both Jews and Palestinians share ancestry with the ancient Canaanites, the region's early inhabitants during the Bronze Age. The Jewish people trace their origins to the Israelites, who emerged as a distinct group around the 2nd millennium BCE, establishing kingdoms centered on Jerusalem and developing a religious and cultural identity deeply tied to the land. Meanwhile, Palestinians descend primarily from the ancient Levantine populations, including Canaanites and Philistines, who lived in the area for millennia. The Arab conquest in the 7th century CE brought Arabization and Islamization, shaping the modern Palestinian identity. Both peoples have maintained continuous presence in the land, with overlapping historical narratives and profound religious connections, especially to Jerusalem and its holy sites, which are sacred to Judaism, Islam, and Christianity alike. For 4 centuries, from 1517 to 1917, Palestine was part of the Ottoman Empire. The population was predominantly Arab Muslim, with Christian and Jewish minorities. Jewish communities, known as the Old Yeshuv, lived mainly in cities like Jerusalem, maintaining religious traditions, but remaining a small minority. In the late 19th century, the Zionist movement led by Theodor Herzl emerged in Europe, inspired by nationalism and the desire to establish a Jewish homeland in Palestine. Early Zionists began purchasing land and establishing settlements, despite Ottoman restrictions. At the same time, Palestinian Arab nationalism began to take shape, largely in response to increasing Jewish immigration and land acquisition, as well as opposition to foreign rule. World War I brought dramatic change. The British captured Palestine from the Ottomans in 1917 and were later granted the mandate for Palestine by the League of Nations. The 1917 Balfour Declaration expressed British support for a Jewish national home in Palestine, while also promising to protect the rights of existing non-Jewish communities. During the British Mandate from 1917 to 1948, Jewish immigration increased significantly, fueling economic development, but also heightening tensions with the Arab population. Both communities organized politically and militarily, leading to outbreaks of violence, including the Arab Revolt of 1936-1939 and Jewish paramilitary responses. The British struggled to balance conflicting promises, and the stage was set for a larger conflict. In 1947, the United Nations proposed a partition plan to divide Palestine into separate Jewish and Arab states, with Jerusalem under international administration. The Jewish leadership accepted the plan, viewing it as a legal basis for statehood. The Arab leadership and neighboring states rejected it, opposing the division and the establishment of a Jewish state. On May 14, 1948, Israel declared independence. The following day, armies from Egypt, Jordan, Syria, Lebanon, and Iraq invaded, marking the start of the 1948 Arab-Israeli War. The war ended in 1949 with Israel controlling about 78% of the former Mandate territory, more than the UN had allocated. Jordan annexed the West Bank, and Egypt controlled Gaza. The war caused the displacement of approximately 700,000 Palestinians, creating a refugee crisis that remains unresolved. The decades following Israel's establishment were marked by several major wars. The 1956 Suez Crisis saw Israel, Britain and France invade Egypt after Nasser nationalized the Suez Canal. International pressure forced withdrawal, but the crisis shifted regional power dynamics. The 1967 Six-Day War was a turning point. Israel launched a preemptive strike against Egypt, Jordan and Syria, capturing the Sinai Peninsula, Gaza Strip, West Bank, including East Jerusalem, and Golan Heights. This tripled Israel's territory and brought over 1 million Palestinians under Israeli control, intensifying the conflict and leading to UN Resolution 242, which called for Israeli withdrawal and recognition of all states in the region. The 1973 Yom Kippur War saw Egypt and Syria launch a surprise attack to reclaim lost territories. Though militarily a stalemate, it restored Arab pride and paved the way for the Camp David Accords, a peace treaty between Egypt and Israel. These wars entrenched occupation and shaped the political landscape for decades. In response to displacement and occupation, Palestinian national identity solidified in the mid-20th century. The Palestine Liberation Organization, PLO, was founded in 1964 as a unified political and military body representing Palestinians. Initially focused on armed struggle, under the leadership of Yasser Arafat, the PLO shifted toward diplomacy, gaining recognition as the legitimate representative of the Palestinian people. The PLO's rise reflected a grassroots movement for self-determination, fueled by the refugee crisis and occupation. It became central to Palestinian identity and the broader Arab-Israeli conflict. The First Intifada, 1987-1993, was a grassroots Palestinian uprising against Israeli occupation in the West Bank and Gaza. It involved widespread protests, civil disobedience and clashes, drawing international attention to the Palestinian cause. This uprising pressured both sides and the international community to seek political solutions. It led to the 1991 Madrid Conference, the first direct negotiations involving Israelis, Palestinians, and Arab states, and ultimately to the Oslo Accords in 1993. The Oslo Accords marked a historic moment. Israel and the PLO recognized each other, and the Palestinian Authority was established to govern parts of the occupied territories. However, many core issues, Jerusalem, refugees, borders, were left unresolved, and the peace process faced setbacks. The Second Intifada erupted in 2000 after a controversial visit by Israeli politician Ariel Sharon to the Temple Mount Haram al-Sharif, a site sacred to both Jews and Muslims. The uprising was far more violent than the first, with suicide bombings, military incursions, and heavy casualties on both sides. In response, Israel constructed security barriers, including the West Bank separation wall, aimed at preventing attacks but criticized internationally for encroaching on Palestinian land and restricting movement. In 2005, Israel unilaterally disengaged from Gaza, evacuating settlements but maintaining control over borders, airspace, and maritime access. This period deepened divisions and led to new challenges, including the rise of Hamas in Gaza. Hamas, an Islamist militant group, emerged during the First Intifada and gained political power by winning the 2006 Palestinian elections. After violent clashes with Fatah, Hamas took control of Gaza in 2007. Since then, Gaza has been the site of repeated conflicts between Hamas and Israel, including major military operations and most recently the October 7th Hamas attack and Jewish massacre in 2023, which has led to Israel escalating its response. Israel and Egypt maintain a blockade on Gaza, citing security concerns, but the blockade has caused severe humanitarian suffering. These cycles of violence and blockade have created a protracted crisis with devastating impacts on civilians. The conflict has produced one of the world's largest refugee crises, with millions of Palestinians displaced since 1948. Refugee camps face overcrowding, poverty, and limited access to basic services. Civilian casualties have been high on both sides, with women, children, and humanitarian workers often caught in the crossfire. Israeli settlement expansion in the West Bank continues to be a major source of tension, leading to displacement and restrictions on Palestinians. The humanitarian situation remains dire, especially in Gaza and parts of the West Bank. The United Nations has played a central role, passing key resolutions such as Resolution 181 in 1947 proposing partition, Resolution 194 in 1948 affirming Palestinian refugees' right of return, Resolution 242 in 1967 calling for withdrawal from occupied territories and peace, resolutions condemning settlements and affirming Jerusalem's contested status. International efforts include the Quartet on the Middle East, the Madrid Conference, Oslo Accords, and the Roadmap for Peace. However, political realities and divisions have hindered implementation. The Trump administration's 2020 Peace to Prosperity plan proposed a two-state solution, but was rejected by Palestinians as biased. The Abraham Accords, also brokered in 2020, normalized relations between Israel and several Arab states, shifting regional dynamics, but not resolving the core Israeli-Palestinian conflict. As of 2025, the conflict remains unresolved, with ongoing violence, humanitarian crises, and diplomatic stalemates. Efforts continue to seek peace, but the path forward is uncertain. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict is a deeply rooted and multifaceted struggle involving history, identity, religion, and politics. Both Israelis and Palestinians have legitimate historical and national claims, and both have suffered profound losses. Understanding this history without bias is essential to appreciating the complexity and humanity behind the headlines. Let's hope for peace and security for all Palestinians, and Israelis arrive soon. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and let us know in the comments what you might like the channel to cover next. And let's be historied together.